Last month, on a visit to Foster Farm Botanicals in Vermont, a dozen of us were chatting about where the industry was heading. And I wondered, what happened to the spark of the 60s? Was there more purity of intent back then? While I'm not sure there was more purity, there certainly was an intense focus on doing what was right, of standing up to what we perceived to be wrong, and of making a genuine effort to see how we might make a difference. The post-war years of growing affluence had already started a cultural shift to seeking something beyond financial security. In looking back, I think of two paths that had emerged in the 60s: anger and love. The first, fueled by deep-seated frustrations regarding police brutality, poverty, and racial inequality within Black communities, visible in the riots of the summer of '67, as well as protests against the Vietnam War. The second, love, was visible in the exploration of Eastern spirituality seen in the writings of Ram Dass's Be Here Now, autobiography of a yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda, and the Beatles, study with Maharishi in Rishikesh, India in '68. In my world in Canada, and at my age, I was mostly unaware of the issues of poverty, race, and the war. Yet the universal language of music was everywhere understood. As I came of age in the late '60s, two bands framed the conversation: the Beatles, Let It Be, and the Stones, Let It Bleed. I looked at Let It Be 100 times. My room was in the basement of my parents' home. I had the old phonograph down there. My guess is that my dad had somehow upgraded to a sound system. I don't know if I or anybody had ever seen anything like Let It Be. The album was housed in this thin, sturdy box, which prominently featured a booklet. My 15-year-old self just accepted it as what was next from God, the universe, the Beatles. Whatever they did was something that we all rode on. Creativity, novelty, evolution, sophistication, album after album, starting with Rubber Soul and Revolver. I didn't own the Stones' Let It Bleed. Rather, I heard it over and over dozens and dozens of times on an extended weekend in the summer of '69, holed up in a Lake of the Woods cabin with 7 high school friends. Marijuana, music, and longing. The album Let It Bleed and the band was one of our passions. One of the guys, called Bonesy, knew the work of guitar player Mick Jones. Most of us only knew Jagger and Richards. 2 girls, a few years older than us, showed up on motorcycles. It was the '60s. We passed them on the highway drive to the cottage. Hung out with us for a few days. In my memory, I'm distant, floating over in a corner in one of the big family rooms. The song, Gimme Shelter from Let It Bleed, captures the time. Oh, a storm is threatening my very life today. If I don't get some shelter, I'm gonna fade away. War, children, it's just a shot away. Rape, murder, it's just a shot away. A year earlier, the Stones' Sympathy for the Devil referenced the same narrative from an earlier time. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain, stuck around St. Petersburg when I saw it was time for a change, killed the Tsar and his ministers. Later in the song, I shouted out, "Who killed the Kennedys?" when after all, it was you and me. Just as every cop is a criminal and all the sinners saints, just call me Lucifer. Contrast that with the title song of the Beatles' Let It Be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Add to that the Beatles' experience with Maharishi, celebrated in John Lennon's Across the Universe. Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither while they pass, they slip across the universe. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy are drifting through my opened mind, possessing and caressing me. Sounds of laughter, shades of life are ringing through my open ears, inciting and inviting me. Limitless, undying love, which shines around me like a million suns and calls me on and on across the universe. Is the spark still here? I see it in the corners here and there. I see it on farms in Oregon and Washington. I see it in the women's cooperatives of Morocco and other African countries. I see it in the eyes of herbalists gathering in the villages of America. I see it in certain houses of distribution of organic goods. I see it in privately held companies of various sizes. I see it in the eyes of my colleagues, of our brokers, and retailers and indies and national chains. I don't know if it's more or less prominent. I don't know if our actions will change the way of doing business, where business is a measure of financial output alone. What I do know is that there is no other choice but to follow that spark of purity. That in following that spark, that belief, that I feel pride in being human, in standing up for what I believe, of setting an example of what I want to be. That while the reality for financial outcome is perhaps less certain this way, and that it is better to take this path than to opt for one guided by measures that place capital over human welfare.